Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, is it the best fighting game, best arena fighter, best Dragon Ball game to ever come out, or is it a steaming pile of dog doo-doo? Let's get into it. I'm Atlas. This is Cash. What up, Cash?
Yo, it is Cash.
And our guy, the Dragon Ball Master, Marksman Crusader.
Hi. Not a master, just an enthusiast.
He's lying. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I want to talk about it because I actually recently bought it. I don't buy games like that, but I did buy Sparking with an exclamation point 0. Apparently, that's like the Japanese name for the Budokai Tenkaichi series.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. But it's kind of like the new hotness. Everybody's talking about it. People are buying it off the hype alone. Some people are regretting the buy. Did I regret the buy? I want to talk about that right now, guys.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I actually have an issue with this game.
What's your issue?
It's
Skill
too
issue?
simple and it's very hard.
Oh, it's too simple and very hard?
Yes, at the same time, somehow it's simple and hard. I'm like thinking it's going to be like the combos. Maybe I don't know if I just haven't got far enough into the game.
So the game is, I would say, it doesn't do enough to properly teach you, the player, the combos and such like that. You kind of have to go out your way because I think with previous games, it did a better job at like having like a training room or whatever where you would specifically have the option to go through all these regiments and learn different specific combos. Because that's one thing I have noticed is that the game heavily benefits those who have been with the Budokai Tenkaichi series or the Sparking series for a long time. Because if you hop in, it doesn't take that long for you to adapt to. I mean, for crying out loud, they have the standard like modern controls and then the classic controls.
Right, which I thought was great that they accommodate the old players so they don't have to like, I keep doing this and I'm doing it wrong because muscle memory. I've been playing that game continuously, even with like Xenoverse 2 or whatever.
Oh yeah. But I definitely agree with you in the sense that it does feel very simple on the surface, which is probably intentional. I would say, don't shoot me, don't shoot the messenger. But it reminds me of Smash Bros. In the sense that it's simplistic on the surface. It is very simple. But then once you actually dive into it, you realize, man, this game is so much more in depth than I realized. Like the fact that there's almost a counter for every single thing that you can do in the game, which is really cool. I know a lot of people have been struggling with that grade 8 Vegeta fight, but
Me.
you?
I'm actually right there right now.
Oh, really?
And we'll talk about this, but I came to a point where I had to swallow my pride and said like, okay, let me look up a technique if there's a technique or like, am I doing something wrong? Because I'm getting just mollywopped. Like he'll grab me and pat my head to death. But like I can't even get him under 2 bars. You know, we both have 4 bars of health, and here's a question. He's guarding everything.
So when you start the match immediately, what's the first thing you do?
So the first thing I do is I dodge left because he's hitting me with the Gatling gun.
Frame 1, he will hit you with the...
That's what he's doing.
Gatling
Every once in a while, he'll switch it up because I played the match like 15 times.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, do you want to lower the difficulty? I'm like, no.
No. Why are you taunting me? Stop.
My man raised no punk.
Exactly.
Why is this option even here?
Difficulty? Nah, we're playing Sparking Zero. Like, we play the Sparking Zero difficulty.
Exactly.
In fact, is there a higher difficulty? That's what I want.
Maybe.
Even though I can't get past this section yet. Just yet. I'm just learning it was late at night. I was like, I'm trying to learn his patterns. Okay, is there kind of like because there's some matches where I could get right above him and just Kamehameha him to death, and that was working, and then he would kind of move around and then get an angle where he could Gatling gun me directly, because a lot of the times he can only Gatling gun it forward until he kind of angles correctly. It's weird.
Would you be able to beam clash him? Because technically it is.
You can beam clash him, but when I did that, I don't think I'm doing it correctly because I'm like going negative into my key.
So for the beam clash, are you like rapidly tapping?
No. I figured out you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to wait till it kind of hits max in the meter.
Okay.
So, and just for people who are watching or listening, if you've played the game, there's a lot of weird little techniques. So if you do like 2 like beam attacks together, you versus somebody else, you can beam clash. And then you go into like a meter segment where you have to wait till the meter rises to a certain point, hit it, and then hit R1 or whatever to increase your kind of ability to kind of beam clash. And I'll win them every time.
Right.
I've never lost a beam clash. But at the end, my player is exhausted and he's trying to regain key.
So I learned from, funny enough, people don't do this, but if you go into the controls and you go into your specific like move sets and stuff, you can learn specifically what your moves do. Like for instance, I know with Saiyan Saga Vegeta, he has a move that gets people off of him. It costs like 2 points or whatever.
2 points. I believe.
Yeah, 2 points. It's a good burst move if you feel like you're being pressured too hard, especially if someone's in sparking mode or they have armor or whatever. You can just use that to burst and get people off of you. And his next move, I believe it uses 3 points, and that one specifically allows him to enhance his I believe his melee attacks and his key-based attacks and other things like that for 15 seconds. So it's good to be able to pop that and immediately just wail on someone.
Are you playing the Goku storyline? Or are you playing?
So I played through all of the Goku storyline just as it is, as it is intended. I know there are what ifs and stuff like that, but I was going to do that after I went through every single character's
the replayability in the game is
good.
fantastic. Shout out to those guys for saying hey, I know there's a lot of theorizers out there, people who really love the series, and they're kind of tired of playing through DBZ Kakarot, DBZ Budokai 1 continuously.
It's the same story. It's
same song and dance, right?
It's written in the manga. I think one of the best things about that is that there's also the custom stories that people can make themselves. So it's hey, what if future Gohan survived? You can make it the story, it's great. Right?
Yeah.
I'm a future Gohan stan. I'm sorry. He's my favorite DBZ character.
No, I get it. But going back into the monkey fight, right?
Monkey.
The fight that's turning one into Frieza.
I really, because I beat Vegeta, and that was kind of hard. I beat Raditz super easily. I'm
Yeah,
I lost the first time. I was I know what I did wrong.
Right.
Vegeta took me 5 times, but I figured, you got to spam Kaioken. For me, I'm okay, so what did they do in the manga? What did they do in the actual show? Do that, and it should work. And then all of a sudden I had Spirit Bomb, and I was wait, how did I access Spirit Bomb?
Yep.
Let me use that, and it killed him.
Sometimes the game will have certain points in a fight where you have to reach a certain parameter in order to unlock that feature or ability. I know, for instance, the Frieza fight. Specifically, there's a point where you don't have access to your Spirit Bomb until a certain point into the match. So you're pretty much playing the game of survive and try to deal as much damage as possible.
And then if you want to change the storyline, you have to actually not use the Spirit Bomb in order to.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
In order to unlock a branching path,
Yep.
don't do it the way it told you to do it.
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
interesting. But what pisses me off about the monkey fight is because I know okay, so we're going in, and if I stay in sparking mode, I'll be strong enough to actually beat him up.
Yes.
And if I avoid getting snatched up, and that me kind of mastering the movement sets of okay, you can dragon dash this way, and just kind of avoid some of those mollywops, right? But on the other side, I'm Kaioken does nothing against this guy.
No.
I think he's open, but it's just kind of ooh, he got hit one time, and we're not going into the whole animation and actually getting my licks in.
Honestly, it feels like they really took a lot of care and dedication to mimic how these fights were portrayed in both the anime and the manga. Yeah. So I think that's really cool because, think about it. Goku was completely outclassed in that fight.
100%.
Yeah, he was tired, he was exhausted, and on top of that, he was fighting a fighter who was so much stronger than him and bigger than him. Yeah, they do a good job of just letting you know as a player, hey, you better lock in, because if you don't, you're going to get thwopped and it's going to be bad.
Yeah,
it's gonna hurt.
Because for me, I did struggle a little bit at first because I was just oh man, I realized I can't just go in the standard way I'm going about it. So what I started doing, like you said, is I immediately started dodging out the way, or I started remembering to block, because blocking reduces the damage on those ki blasts so much compared to how they normally would hit you. So normally a ki blast might hit you for several thousand damage or whatever. It'll probably be enough to take out a full meter, right? But if you block, you only take down a quarter, if anything.
Should you block or should you try to reflect? Because I've tried to do both and then get screwed up, and then you start eating the blast.
I'm not too sure about reflecting, because reflecting is a little bit harder to perform on.
Reflecting is a risk and reward feature where it's if you reflect, you're gonna smack it away, but if you don't time it correctly, you will get smacked up. You will take that damage.
Yeah,
it's kind of like when you're really good and you can show off a little bit, and someone thinks they're getting you with a nice barrage, you're just
yeah,
and now you're good to go.
Absolutely. So what I ended up doing was I realized, oh, wait a minute. Anytime that, it's a real simple process, but anytime he gets up and he starts to dragon dash me or whatever, I realized, all I have to do is just, follow his trajectory for a bit, and just hit him with the Kamehameha because he can't. So when you're dragon dashing,
Directly dragon dashing, he can't just zoom out the way.
Yeah, he can't just zoom out. It's very hard to maneuver out the way. You're more likely are going to run into an attack, and that puts you in a free fall state. So it takes a while for you to recover, right? Mm-hmm. So when that happens, it gives you enough time to recharge back, and you can immediately resort to doing it again. I know for some people, they have been able to sort of rush into his face and do a little bit of damage and dash out before he really, started to wail on them. Like you mentioned, Sparking mode allows you to put in that damage if possible, but you have to remember because he's a big foe, you can't get away with it as hard as you normally would be able to. So
yeah, no, definitely. And I starting to realize like what really works and what doesn't work. And I haven't even beat this boss yet, so like who am I to talk? But like starting to understand there's some beauty in the mechanics, but also it is very simple. Like, okay, you activate Kaioken, it gives you buffs, it gives you defensive buffs as well, which is great. But also on the other side, we have the issue of solar flare. I don't know if you have to be like right up on them.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
those features are they're very finicky. And I have noticed that thing that you mentioned about like sometimes when you're trying to transition too quickly between certain commands, the game doesn't register properly and it thinks that you're trying to input someone else. And that was something I ran into in my later fights when I was, for instance, I got to the fight against Jiren as a, Super Saiyan Blue Goku transitioning into UI Sign and transitioning to Master UI Goku. Sometimes when I would try to do my supers, like using the right trigger and O, Goku would kind of freak out and be like, huh, what am I doing? I'm just going to...
Just gotta fight these guys now.
Yeah, I'm just
gonna knuckle up.
Like what?
and I'm like, dang. I feel like when the audience members amongst the rest of the Universe 7, like, Goku, wake up, get in there, fight. What are you doing, Goku?
Huh?
Triggering some cutaway. So what's actually happening is in his head, he's having these like flashback moments and trying to get motivated for the fight.
Have you been seeing those videos where that guy, he does like those like goofy AI shorts of like Piccolo in a dap-off tournament with Gohan and such?
No, I haven't seen that.
And he has like that goofy smirk where he has a smirk and he has like a cigarette in his mouth. Like, and he's always explaining, because throughout Dragon Ball, Piccolo is that guy who just explains anything and any ability.
He really does.
He pretty much is the person who explains to the audience, oh, here's this ability, here's how it works. Because in every shonen, you have to explain your abilities. Otherwise, the audience is not going to know what it is. And in some shonen, they try to incorporate that and make it like to its benefit. I think one of the shonens that surprisingly it's a new gen that does it really well is Jujutsu Kaisen. The reason being is that when you explain your ability, it's technically what they call a binding vow. And what that means is if you explain the mechanics for how your ability works, you will gain a boost to your power because now your opponent knows how to technically handle it. So because you gave away that knowledge of how to handle it, you get an amp to your abilities. So sometimes, characters will not even say their power outright because maybe it's too dangerous for them to give up that potential strength or weakness. And they don't really need the amp. But if you really do need that amp against someone who's strong enough, you're going to explain your abilities. And I think it's so funny because it works. He's like, oh, why is this person explaining their ability? Like, yes, if I take a slice of bread and I cover it with jam and I take a cat and I put it on the cat, I drop the slice of bread and cat, it will cause a perpetual spinning matrix, which allows me to use that power to funnel my own power to allow me to move at a much faster than light speed or whatever, right?
Infinite.
The average anime.
Yeah, the average anime. But they over-explain. But usually most abilities are a lot simpler than that. And I know Hunter x Hunter is notorious for having stupid explanations for their abilities. JJK also kind of somewhat falls into that at times. But for the most part, I would say like it's one of the funnier mechanics of like going about like trying to explain your abilities. But anyway, speaking about Piccolo specifically, so imagine like, Piccolo, like Piccolo's in the stands like, oh, what's Goku doing? Like he's trying to like, activate his supers. Like, huh, you fool, don't you understand? What Goku is, he's trying to psych out the enemy because naturally the enemy's going to think that, oh, he's open to his attack. So I want to go in and attack him. But in reality, Goku is psyching him out. And this gives him the opportunity to land his super, a crucial damaging blow.
Goku, not Goku. I think Piccolo going from like the nemesis of Dragon Ball to like just like the guy you need. It's the most Fast and Furious thing I've ever seen before Fast and Furious was really doing it.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, dude. Oh my, it's hilarious. it's great.
No, it's fantastic. Now, if we talk about why Dragon Ball Sparking Zero sucks, let's keep it a buck.
Ooh.
It's super simple, even though I'm clearly struggling with some stuff. But I'm like, why is there not like the Mortal Kombat style? If I get in this button combination, I can activate some really cool stuff. Why is it, just hold right trigger and hit a face button, and now you have one of the most important abilities in the game? It seems too easy. But the game is still hard because you have to counter with a bunch of other systems, like you said, kind of like Brawl. But I felt like the old, like original Budokai made you do extra steps to get good attacks.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of combos in the older ones that you definitely had to actually access in order to do specific moves. And I think they wanted to simplify that down a little bit just because they were just like, I don't want people to have to break their brains over it, even though, we have certain people like Tekken players.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, this Tekken and the other fighters, like the 2D fighters.
Yeah, the 2D
Did Fighter Z have?
Fighter Z had combos, I think.
So Fighters or Fighter Z, whatever you want to call it, that is more of a traditional like 2D fighting game akin to like Guilty Gear,
Marvel vs. Capcom.
Those style kind of games. So it does exemplify knowing your different combos and stuff. Now there is, don't get me wrong, there is like an auto combo that you can do, which is just mashing the the square button for your light attacks. I think they have like light, medium, and heavies, and they usually have alternating between like your light kicks or your light punches, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot more depth into it in terms of like the controls at a glance compared to Sparking Zero. That being said, I wouldn't also discredit Sparking Zero despite it seeming like it's very light on the surface. Because
I thought maybe I hadn't gotten far enough to actually unlock some of like the more complex combos.
Very well. Okay, I will say they did sort of like do away with a lot of like those complex, like I would say like move specific, like character specific combos, and they went for like a more universal style combos that you can perform for your characters. But the big thing is like you're going to be doing your I don't know, maybe like square triangle into like a dragon dash square into like whatever your super is.
Most of the combos tend to have just more like mechanic combos, if you will, and they do have just like chain combos.
Yeah,
right, where you need to make sure your chi's at a certain level and then wait for an opening and then perform it, and then it'll actually work.
Because I would say like Fighters is a little bit better at that when it comes to like, you need to have this amount of meter in order to perform this specific dragon dash, or you need to have this type of meter in order to perform this other type of unique move. Of course, like whenever it comes to like, your super moves, like, hey, your Kamehamehas or your spirit bombs or, your, big bang attacks or your final flashes, stuff like that.
Final flash.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, so I did want to just say I like the game. I think it looks great most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
Although when you're fighting Vegeta and the camera zoomed all the way in, like his character model gets really pixelated and wait after he beats you.
Right.
And he's like laughing. It's like, why does it look like that? This is a key moment in the game.
I noticed
you get beat by him 25 billion times.
Right. Sorry to interrupt, but I did notice for some segments they have like pre-recorded gameplay, like akin to I don't know, like your older school games where you would just play through, like you just have the gameplay there and you just play through it and you just record it. So it's a lot lower resolution compared to like the inactive game engine, which I have noticed. And I'm not entirely sure what was the purpose of doing that. Maybe it's to cut down the cost and time, probably.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's one of those things where when it happens and when you see it, it's very noticeable. I do appreciate them kind of going to more manga style panels of like there's motion and it suddenly stops and becomes a little bit slowed down. Like I think that works well for them because it keeps things like slow and simple, and also kind of pays a little bit of an homage to the manga panels. Because one thing that I think that a lot of people miss out on whenever they just specifically choose to consume just either live action adaptations, because if you do that, then I don't know what to tell you. But if you choose to do that, or if you choose to consume like anime adaptations, is that sometimes they don't really are able to capture what those manga panels exactly had.
That original vision.
Like that original vision, that the paneling. Because there's something special being able to see, like for instance, Kid Goku ripping through Demon King Piccolo's chest and the way that it angles and all that. Like, yes, the anime looks great for it, especially for its time. It looks pretty good. That being said, I would love to see a remake of OG Dragon Ball. But despite that, you're not going to get the unique paneling that you see that Toriyama is known for as well. Because that's one thing that's a little bit of a shame is that you don't realize how excellent and like how just visionary these manga artists are when it comes to their paneling, unless you specifically read the manga or if the anime for some reason decides to adapt that style of paneling.
Like a 1-to-1.
Yeah. Like the best example, okay, this is going to sound goofy, but the best example of any like comic book paneling that I have ever seen was the Scott Pilgrim movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
Which is, it's really odd. But for some reason, they do such a good job when it comes to paneling in terms of like adapting from like comic books or graphic novels directly into a live action adaptation.
So with Sparking Zero, a lot of people have said it's one of the best looking games they've seen in a long time, which that's not true. But
You're gassing it up too hard.
Well, especially if you see like the cutscenes from Fighters or Fighter Z.
Yeah,
and
Fighters
then
is
you-
really good.
And then you compare it 1-to-1 with the cutscenes from this game, Sparking Zero.
Right.
Like, there's some stuff that's like, okay, yeah, well, they did it this way, and then it just looks different. But some of the stuff from Fighters is like, whoa, that looks really good. And it's more true to the spirit of the anime and the anime style versus
Right.
some 3D rendered world,
Right.
which can seem more, bargain bin. That said, some people have also said, well, with Fighters or Fighter Z or whatever you want to call it, if you are on an off angle, like the camera's moved in a weird way, this stuff looks terrible because it was really designed for like a 2D world in mind.
Yeah, no, that's one thing about Dragon Ball and specifically Toriyama's style is that a lot of his designs and stuff, they don't. It's going to sound terrible, but no disrespect to the late Toriyama, but they don't look the best they could if they're in 3D, complete 3D. And yes, we do have the superhero movie, and that is like surprisingly really good in terms of capturing a lot of his designs. But even then, there's still times where you're like, man, this will look really good if it was just, in standard like a 2D plane. Because the issue is like some of those designs for like at least some of like the Super Saiyan hairstyles is that they're like extremely spiky and they stand out and they're stiff. And the advantage you have with animation is that you can make it more flowy. You can have it look a little bit livelier. But when you opt for the 3D animation, you have to go for that more stiff like stylization, and it stands out a lot more. Like it's still possible to achieve it because obviously Sparking Zero does that and does it really well. Especially when you have like those the supers or whatever. Like like I guess for instance if Goku's performing his angry Kamehameha, right? Like he's yelling out "You fool!" and you see it's so good. Yeah, so good. You really see like the animations, or even like his like Super Saiyan transformations or whatever. Or if you want to look at like a different character, like for instance, off the top of my head, I guess like just maybe like Android 17. He doesn't have any transformations, but his hair is obviously not stiff. It's constantly moving.
It's not blocky.
It's not blocky. So I think those are things that we've benefited from the aspect of like 3D animation and like CGI just getting better over time to the point where we can finally start to adapt these art styles that were traditionally not really designed to be in 3D. So I still think that Toriyama's style works best in 2D, but it's gone to the point where it can work in 3D now.
Nice. So wrapping up, what would you rate this game, considering you can get Fighter Z on the PlayStation for free if you have the right package?
Oh.
Yeah, I actually just downloaded it. I'm going to go back and play it and see if it holds up. What would you rate this game overall out of 10?
Out of 10 for... Are we talking about as a Dragon Ball game or as a game, period?
As a game, period, but you can add a modifier for Dragon Ball fans.
Okay. So if you're a Dragon Ball fan, this game is easily like an 8 or a 9. Easily an 8 or a 9. I would dare say even a 10 at times, just because of the sheer love and appreciation this game has shown for the Dragon Ball franchise, which is, something that Dragon Ball fans have been sort of yearning for a long time. Just any appreciation for Dragon Ball. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we haven't seen any future adaptations until recent, like with the recent Dragon Ball Daima, which, once again, all the story, the design of the characters and stuff by Toriyama. And so far, it's pretty good. I mean, I've been showing Nate Dragon Ball Diamond. He's seemingly enjoyed it, unless he hates it. And he
Secretly hates it.
I just despise Dragon Ball Daima.
Secretly.
No, it's a pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's a spicy.
Yeah,
It's
it's
spicy
starting. It's not like fully getting there yet because they're just starting with the main premise of like I'm not
Right.
gonna,
You have to build.
you have to build into
the introduction
Yeah,
storyline.
yeah, world building, right? But that being said, I would say like for Dragon Ball fans, this is an easy slam dunk. Like this is a major go. Like certified slam dunk. Get in there. It's
Okay, Flossie Carter. I see.
yeah, right. If you could have any wish for a Dragon Ball game, this is exactly what you would get, right? Now, for anyone who's not a Dragon Ball fan, but let's say you just like arena fighters and stuff, I would say it's like a solid like 8, maybe like a 7.5 and 8. But for like people who are not fans of either of those genres and they're just hopping into it, I would say it's like a solid 7.
Fair. Nate, what you got?
Oh boy. So, like I said, Dragon Ball fans, you're eating good, right? I'm sorry, Naruto fans. I'm sorry, Bleach fans. You're just not getting that game.
Whoa. Bleach, we're getting there. Okay, we're still eating good because look at it. We got the 1,000-Year Blood War. It was currently being animated.
Those are animes.
Okay,
we're talking about the game.
Games. Okay,
Games.
Have you
Let
seen
this man cook.
I'm just saying.
All right. I'll stop for a second.
Naruto fans and Bleach fans, when it comes to gaming, right? Like, they haven't been eating good. Let's be honest here, right? Dragon Ball fans, today this month was a good month for eats. That's all I'm gonna say, right?
Yeah, he's not wrong.
That's all I gotta say about that, right? For the most part, when it comes to the game, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, like you said, it's like a 9 to 10, right? We've been asking for this game. They delivered. They said we're gonna give you what we want. We're gonna give you a bunch of characters to kind of mess with, and the best part about it is we're gonna give you a lot of creative freedoms, right? So if you're a Dragon Ball fan and you're like, and there's like a ton of Dragon Ball what if guys that are on YouTube, right?
Yep.
It's like now you get to make your own what ifs, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a plus. If you're just a regular gamer who likes fighting games, for you, I'd say it's probably like a 7 to an 8, right? If you have no idea what you're even getting yourself into, but you just heard the clout, it's gonna be probably like a 5 to a 6.5 for you. Which is, why did you get this game in the first place? Do your research.
Right.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah, no, that's a fair rating system, I would say.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and say that for me, liking Dragon Ball, growing up with it, watching how many episodes of Dragon Ball Z?
Yes.
Not Kai. I'm talking about the original.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
a lot.
OG Dragon Ball because they had all the filler and
plus
such.
the Team 4-Star. So much filler.
Yep.
So many episodes where we're 4 episodes in and he's still charging the Spirit Bomb. What? Anyways, for a true Dragon Ball Z head, not me. Like I liked it, but like for a true Dragon Ball head, they watched all of GT, they watched Super, they're looking for the next thing, they're watching all the fan stuff, they're watching Team 4-Star, like all that. Oh, it's probably a 9 or a 10. Like I'm sure they'll find some gripe, right? Something about it that they're like, well, they didn't do that, and I really wanted to be okay, whatever, I don't care. But for me, I'm just like the typical guy. I love Dragon Ball. I tried to go Super Saiyan as a kid. Didn't poop my pants in the process, thank God. But at the end of the day, I don't have a lot of time to play games, and I don't I don't want the game to be too handholdy, but I do want it to kind of like recognize when I'm struggling and be like, hey, maybe try this. And,
Like gentle
prompts.
parenting?
Huh?
Like gentle parenting?
Gentle parenting. I want the game to gentle parent me a little bit.
That's hilarious.
And at that level, I do struggle with the game. Right now, it's like a 7.8, which I recognize the beauty in the game and how just amazing it's going to be, but I'm not quite there yet. And maybe when I finally get past the third level, the third fight, maybe I'll have more to say and be like, oh yeah, it's amazing. Or this game is absolute doo-doo. I don't know why you guys recommended it. I spent $80 on what? Huh? So... But for the guy, because there was a guy in one of our YouTube shorts who was like, yo, I didn't, because you were saying like, hey, don't uninstall the game, just get good. And he was like, Steam uninstalled it for me when I requested my refund. And I was like, wait, what happened? He's like, well, I just didn't like it. And I was like, oh, so for you, it was like a 4 or 5 maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe it wasn't just completely bad, but not good enough to spend $80 on. That's a lot of money,
It is. I mean, there's a lot that it's offering for people, especially if you're fans. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I can understand if it's not vibing with you, then that's okay. I ain't gonna rag on you for that. At the end of the day, I want you to enjoy games. If you don't rock with the game, that's okay. You go and play something you actually enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, so I'm not sitting on the fence. I think it's 7.8. It could be better, but obviously, if stuff comes up in the game later on, and I've not played a ton of hours, it will be worse. Like if it's worse,
Yeah.
What you think? We should end it?
I guess we could.
All right, guys. So the way we recorded this, we wanted to keep it shorter. So, but I'm gonna like cut it up and put it on the full podcast over on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, not YouTube podcast, but it's not gonna be on the full, but Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if there's a podcast platform that you use, let me know. I know a lot of you are driving and whatnot, so let me know.